What's up, and welcome back to Cryptographics. And today I want to go over something that I've been thinking about over the last while. And if you had seen my blog post on how easy can it 100x PulseChain versus PulseX versus HEX, this is something I've been thinking about. And I tried to allude to this in my thoughts on this blog. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go in the description and give it a read, because I'm not going to go over all the details that are in this blog today. But I do want to compare and contrast PulseX versus Pulse versus HEX when it comes to performance over the next period, whatever that means to you. So the first thing is, let's talk about PulseChain. Well, PulseChain's major demand is going to come from the market, right? I mean, there's no buy and burn, there's no staking really, there's nothing that you can really do unless you're a validator to gain more pulse. So you buy pulse and you hold it and other people buy it and the price goes up. Now there's probably going to be a pretty massive demand for pulse. So that's the case for Pulse. Now there's PulseX, and PulseX obviously has the buy and burn function where 22, I think roughly, % of the total fees that are on every transaction that go through PulseX are going to be going through the exchange and then buy PulseX. And then you can go here and press this public burn function, which anyone can call, and it's going to burn PLSX, which is great because the supply is deflationary, and every time it deflates, that means that basically PLSX was bought up off the market in order to then be burnt. And through some of the numbers that I've seen, I mean, and you could see others online, you got like K4K Crypto, you've got Top Gun Hexadian, and you got all these guys, and there's so many people and community members that are making data or making models and showing data on how PulseX could be pretty damn crazy. But at the end of the day, who really knows? It really depends on adoption and over what time period we're looking at PulseX. And even if we compare just Pulse to PulseX, I mean, you know, it really depends. Depends on adoption, because let's say we expect Pulse to do a 100x from launch price, and we only expect PLSX to do like, I don't know, an 80x from launch price. Well, if PLSX goes down first, maybe it does more from its bottom, you know, depending on what Pulse does. So, and in order for Pulse to do 100x, that comes straight from the market. In order for a PulseX to do a 100x, it needs a little bit less of market demand, and it needs a lot of volume flowing into other tokens, either pumping or dumping. Doesn't matter. As long as there's not dumping PLSX and something else is pumping or dumping, then that's going to mean that the PulseX price is going to be actually affected on PulseChain. So PulseX is going to have a little bit easier time pumping for the same amount of dollars flowing into it. Doesn't necessarily mean that PulseX is going to do any sort of crazy outperforming versus Pulse, but it's important to understand because PulseX is likely to be some sort of crazy animal that we've never seen in terms of decentralized exchange tokens. So, and you mean you also have the single-sided staking with PulseX. So that's pretty sweet. Don't know how lucrative that's going to be yet. We know it's going to be like a bootstrapping type of staking, so you're going to be getting tokens that are going to be starting out, and they're probably not going to have a whole lot of value, so we don't know what those are going to be like. But that being said, now we're going to talk about HEX, because this is the thing. PulseX and Pulse are singular in their tokens, and this means that one price goes up to affect the total amount of return that you're going to get. Now, let's consider HEX for a second here. HEX is the golden child. It is the product that Richard Hart built that he keeps talking about over and over as, I think this is Nobel Prize worthy. And if he's right, and even regardless, what he's implying is this is his baby. HEX is the thing that he put to market to be the product market fit, the solution to Bitcoin's issues, the solution to so many issues in DeFi, and to make a true, trustless, immutable DeFi product that pays the people on their own terms, and it's just them and the code. And PulseChain and PulseX only exist because HEX exists. There's no PulseChain, there's no PulseX without HEX. So remember that. One of the things that Richard's also said is he does not want cheap HEX on any chain. So even if HEX launches at a lower price than its Ethereum counterpart, I don't know that that would last forever. I doubt it. I think that we would probably find parity over the coming weeks, maybe a month or two, tops. But just speculatively, like, I don't have an idea. There's no way to know how it's going to turn out. But think of it this way. Let's assume for a second now, and talk about price, that parity does happen. So this changes everything because you didn't get a copy of PulseX on Ethereum. You didn't get a copy of PulseChain from Ethereum. You did, though, get a copy of your HEX tokens on PulseChain from Ethereum. So in theory, you're going to have, you will have double the amount of HEX tokens, but you have them split between two chains. If we assume, and only if, we assume that parity is coming for both HEX on Ethereum and HEX on PulseChain, and by parity, I mean the same price, of course. If we assume that happens, in order for, if we're assuming also that PulseChain and PulseX are both going to do a 100x, HEX only needs to do a 50x on either chain in order for you to be at parity or equal in what Pulse will do in its gains. So think about that for a second. That's interesting. Now, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, this is going to be the second cycle that HEX is going to have. This is going to be the first cycle for both PulseX and PulseChain, and everybody's hyped about the new shiny objects, right? So, I mean, that's what's going for PulseX and Pulse. And then you have like the tokenomics of PulseX, and I think that they will be very successful, but you can't count out HEX. Like, all I'm trying to say here is before you go and dump your HEX for PulseX or PulseChain, ask yourself why you're doing it. What kind of forecast are you looking at for Pulse and PulseX? Why do you think they're going to perform the way they do? And why do you think that HEX is going to underperform versus PulseX and PulseChain? I think these are all very important things to consider because it's not a singular comparison here. It's not PulseChain versus PulseX versus HEX and they're all equal and level. They're all very different, and you need to consider that as much as humanly possible before you make a decision. And so I think if you're coming into this launch and you're trying to figure out a strategy, I think the best thing you could possibly do is less. Yes, if you want to get something and you know exactly why you're doing it, you can answer all the questions, you can go why, and you understand exactly what you're doing, I think then you'll know that what you're doing is the right move or the wrong move, and you either will or won't do it. But I want to remind you again about HEX. That's why I'm making this video. The T share is going to be going up every single day for the rest of HEX's life. And if you assume that HEX is going to go up in price as well, the T share is going to be one of the most valuable things in crypto. So don't forget that. Now, I'm not trying to paint the picture that HEX is going to do better, but I do want to keep reminding you that HEX came first for a reason. I know it's easy to get shiny object syndrome or get excited about the shiny objects, the new ones, because they might not only be shiny, they might actually be amazing. And I do think they are absolutely amazing. They're not just shiny. You know, they're not that surface level in terms of their value. But I think it's very, very, very important to understand the OG, HEX, why it's here, why PulseX and PulseChain are here, and just how simple it is for both your copies of HEX to perform similarly to something like PulseX and PulseChain. Again, a 50x on two chains equals a 100x on one chain. If you think HEX is going to do 3/4, so let's say 75x on one chain, and they're at parity, and you think Pulse and PulseX will do a 100x, that means between the two chains, HEX is going to do 150x. These are things you got to consider. I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole here, but I did want to leave that because I have been seeing and hearing with a lot of the people that I'm working with Twitter and social media. I do want to make sure everyone's on the same page, that they understand what it would take for HEX to perform similarly to Pulse and PulseX if they perform really well, and the difference in situation between Pulse, PulseX, and HEX, and how they act differently in terms of what you can expect on an ROI. So I think I'm rambling now. So I'm going to stop rambling now, and I'm going to end the video. But thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed, please go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Drop me a comment with what your thoughts are going to be on Pulse performance, on PulseX, on HEX. And if you want someone to speak to about this ecosystem, learning the basics, getting up to speed, thinking about your own strategy, if you need one or not, if you don't, if you need anything at all with the PulseChain ecosystem or any of these products, including Hedron or Icosa, you can definitely hit me up. I do one-on-one coaching sessions for either 30 minutes or 1 hour, and the link is in the comments there. If not, no problem. I also have a book for you that's free on my website where you can go to cryptographics.com or get the Kindle version on Amazon, as well as a paperback or hard copy. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it made you think a little bit. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.